Happy New Year, Earthlings. Apologies in advance for the weird scar on my nose and the taped glasses. I've been doing longsword fencing recently, and I kind of took a thrust straight to the face. So number one is that time is the only resource that exists. Obviously, money has a big part to play in our lives, but for me personally, I put everything in a frame of how much time will this cost me? Is this worth my time? Now, I kind of see money in a totally direct relationship to time. And this year, and probably in years going forward, I'm okay continuing to earn maybe $10,000 a year, which would be considered poor by most standards, but the situations I'm in life allow me to take that 10,000 and live like an absolute king and pursue my dreams every day. Because ultimately, you couldn't offer me $1 million job a year if it meant that I wasn't able to do what I'm doing right now. So 2020 did seem to be the year of mental health, mental awareness, and I realized this year that I really wasn't giving a lot of room to my feelings or honoring them, really. It was always about other things, about what I had to do or accomplish, or I don't know, people that I had to please. And I realized that, I don't know, I think the world could really benefit from just being more mindful of everybody's emotions and how that relates to everything. Which brings me on to number three, is that it seems to be that emotions actually matter a lot more than facts, at least in dealing with people. Now, I'm sure many of you guys have had a wide variety of experiences dealing with people who are maybe saying COVID is a hoax or Trump is Earth's savior. And whether or not those things are true, I've had many interesting conversations where it just seems like fact doesn't matter. And I realized that relating to people, connecting with them, and being able to have an actual dialogue where you're really communicating instead of speaking at each other, the person has to feel heard. And so in this regard, it's emotions. Emotions are the primary language that we have. And this is something that I'll be keeping in mind as I go forward into very, very strange times. That is 2021. So number four is that feeling guilty for what you need is not okay. Like, it's okay to have needs, whether that's a day off or to not pursue your current line of work anymore. For me, is going to be the year where I really dig deep and understand, hey, what is it that Troy needs out of life to be healthy, happy, and a productive member of society? And often, it's just a little bit of rest. Number five is that family and close relationships, they're the most important thing in the world. And you really have so much less time with them than you think. Actually, by the time you're 18 or by the time you move out of the house, statistically, 97% of your time with your parents is already spent. So the sixth thing that I learned is that we all have so much more to learn about the world, each other, race, microbiology, everything. And I noticed, especially this year, that it seemed to be a trend that people are suddenly experts about the world from watching a few YouTube videos or doing some link surfing on Google, which they would consider as research. And I don't know, to me, the world only continues to get more and more complex. And I've said it so many times before, and I'll say it again, is that I am no expert about anything. I'm just a person who's curious about the world and wants to understand it. And in doing that, I have realized more and more and more that there are so many unknowns out there. And yes, it is scary, and it seems to be a defense mechanism when we believe we know everything about the way that things are. So moving forward into this new year, I'm gonna continue what I'm doing, reading, exploring, talking to people whose views differ from me, and just not putting too much faith in any one idea. The things I can put faith in are my values and the very simple things that I know, which is every human deserves love, and that trust should always win out over fear. Which brings us to number 7, radical self-care. I had this conversation with a few friends in Minneapolis about how important radical self-care is, and I also realized that I was not doing this at all. Now, radical self-care for me means stepping away from Instagram, not watching as many YouTube videos, being very intentional with my time, like watching cinema and movies, and then writing analyses after. So radical self-care can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but for me, it meant just being really cognizant of, hey, who is this human? And when this human is on his deathbed, what are the things that are important? This ties into number 8, which is being deadly honest about everything in life. If there's any guarantee, it's that humans are most prone and susceptible to seeking out comfort and the easy way out and self-justification. So I tried to see and separate what was self-justification for my behaviors and what was things that really, for my inner being, my innermost being, are my values and my character. And taking a good hard look at everything I do from day to day, and even the messages that I send out on Instagram or through text, it was just analyzing, hey, what's really the most important thing here? And doing that made me give up a lot of stuff. It made me not care about dozens of things I thought were really important. And it freed up a lot of my time, which is obviously in relation to number 1, that time is kind of my only currency now. Every action that I'm doing, I think, is this what I really want to be doing in life out of anything else in the world? And if that answer is yes, then I keep that. And if it's no, then I figure out why I'm doing it and what I would really want to be doing instead. All right, number 9. And I'm sorry if this isn't the most cheerful 20 lessons in 2020, but I think it was a tough year. It was a tough year for me in certain ways. Obviously, other people had it much, much more difficult, but this year taught me a lot. And one of those things was that difficult conversations suck. They really suck, but they're so necessary, and especially necessary to do with courage and care. Now, this could be with friends, family members, a boss, fellow coworkers, strangers even. I realized this was important for me because there are many ways in which I wasn't standing firm in my values and what I think goodness is. And I would often, and still do, honestly, all the time, like this is something I'm still working on, kind of bend to the will of others when I know that whatever I'm speaking about is important to me. Now, this doesn't mean bulldoze over people in conversations, but rather make what is important to you be known with humility and vulnerability. And vulnerability doesn't mean weakness. It means putting your full, honest feelings out there so that you can talk about it with people. And a lot of times, those feelings might be misplaced, or what you think could just be wrong. But the point is the conversation that happens because of that, and making yourself expressed, but also understanding that it's not the easiest thing to do for a lot of people out there. I know it isn't for me. Staying clear in your mind and not letting yourself get swept up into the emotions of these conversations, but rather sticking to what you know is important and what you need to see out of them is, that was a big lesson for me. Experimentation. I love experimenting with the way that I work and play and everything in between. From tiny little things that I got to implement from books like Atomic Habits, or just the way that I film, light, talk, react to things, the methods in which I do things, like getting given this typewriter and typing poetry on it. I've come up with my own currency for doing computer work, and then when I get to go and have some leisure time in front of the screen, or even just switching up the way that I personally schedule my day. It's so much fun to switch up the way that you do things from day to day and see what works and see what doesn't. I've kind of become like this architect scientist of my own life, and that's been really, really rewarding. Number 11 is that I don't really need to hold on to any identity of who I am. In fact, I realized that my identity as a traveler or a van lifer or a YouTuber or anything, it can kind of drive you a little crazy because you're constantly trying to fit yourself into this box, which, I mean, we're people, you know, we're not toys, we're not objects, and we'll never fit into any box that we put ourselves in, even yesterday, because we're constantly evolving, constantly changing. And yeah, the ideas of identity is, I mean, it's kind of not even real. Like being a world traveler, you know, that identity actually caused me a lot of sadness and feeling like a failure because one, I wasn't able to travel because of COVID and be out there, and two, it was putting a lot of expectations on myself. And as we all know, expectations are the root of all disappointment, because no expectation that you create in your mind will ever amount to what real life is. And man, real life is so much more messy, but it's also so much more beautiful. Number 12 is that fear is the mind killer, if there are any Dune fans out there. Yeah, I really changed my relationship to fear this year. Experiences of cliff jumping or doing bufo, for those of you that know what it is, and if you don't, look it up yourself. I basically had an experience where I faced death in the face and died, and that was terrifying. But when you come out of the other side of fear, when you move through it with courage, because you know this thing is coming, and there was this feeling that this is the only thing I could do, is to push through it. Coming out the other end of that is just pure exhilaration. Number 13 is that there are many aspects of myself that I just plain don't like. And that can range from ungratefulness in the most happy of times, taking things for granted. You know, the list goes on. And I realize that it's not about getting down on yourself about these aspects. Progress really happens in changing your character when you can recognize what's happening and why you're thinking this way, and own it. Obviously, nobody's perfect, and it's always going to be a continuing journey to get better and better at loving each moment and just being fully there. And I'm not fully there yet, but I'm working on it. And that starts with understanding who and why you are the way that you are. Number 14 is boundaries. Boundaries between, again, friends, family, coworkers, everybody. It's important to know your boundaries, know why that they're there, and to communicate them effectively. Because if somebody doesn't know what your boundaries are, they're likely to get broken. Number 15 is that human perception is wildly different. Me and 100 other people could experience the same exact moment, like a play, and have completely different interpretations, feelings, what we think really happened, and this kind of permeates into every aspect of real life. And it's important to talk about these perceptions because, I mean, even just in my family alone, we've had, you know, some arguments that really didn't need to happen just because we were miscommunicating. And so communicating in clear and effective ways is, again, another internal journey that I think all of us are taking collectively over the past year and pandemic, and is something that I'm going to continue to work on for all the years to come. Don't take your passion too seriously. Filming and YouTube and cinematography, telling stories, that has absolutely been my passion for many years, and I realized just how much pressure I was putting on myself to do the absolute best thing that I could, and it was honestly just crippling me. I mean, there was a period of 4 months where I didn't release a video because I was just terrified to sit down at that computer and edit because I was afraid of messing up. Yeah, I was taking myself way too seriously and kind of lost my inner child in that process. Number 17. Sticking to your word in its full honesty is the best long-term policy. It is so easy to lie, to get out of things, even just little things. And I've realized how that just adds up. It adds up stress and guilt and pressure over a lifetime. And I realized that just sticking to what's true and sticking to what I say not only makes me a lot more thoughtful of what I do say when I make promises, but also it's just an easier life. I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to plan. I don't have to figure out how to make things work or the perfect thing to say. Again, it's about going back to very, very simple ideas, simple values, and just operating from there. And that is truth and empathy. I love being at home. I love being in a house. I love being with my family, but even more than that, I love being alone and reading and writing and not necessarily having to have any work to show for it. And I do write notes and I get a lot of ideas from the books that I read, but yeah, I just realized how much I love downtime and doing the things that are most important to me. All right, and number 20, ending on a juicy one, is that it's okay if nobody is romantically interested in you, or you're not romantically interested in anybody else. Despite feelings of guilt that I'm 28 and completely single, that yeah, it's just love is not exactly a priority in my life. This year, I realized and decided to just stop judging the journey of where I was. And that journey is that I really love being alone. I don't necessarily care to be in a relationship, and I don't really need the interest of somebody to distract me from the things that I really do love. At the end of the day, falling in love with yourself and that relationship journey can be just as fulfilling, if not more. And I guess at the end of our lives, I mean, everybody dies alone, and yourself is the only person you can take with you. But not to say that love isn't grand, because oh boy, is it. I'm just not gonna have any more expectations for 2021 and moving forward. Yeah, I guess that's the moral of this video, is that expectations for any year in the modern times will just get absolutely blown out of the water and to Pluto. Because wow, what a year. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. See you all later.